Joe from WoodWarped here. Thought I would take the time today to give you a little progress update on the bookshelves I've been working on. If you've been following me on Instagram and YouTube, you would have seen some videos and some images that I've been posting of the progress of these bookshelves. This goes in conjunction with a desktop that I built for a family. There's two of these bookcases that are side by side. It looks a little weird sitting on my bench here, but further down the road, as things get complete, I'll post some more pictures of that as well. But today I wanted to take some time and talk a little bit about the shelving that I'm doing on the front. Now, my next step is going to be to put the face frame on, which I should get that done today. But I wanted to show you how I approach the shelving. But as you can see, I traditionally will just use a veneer plywood. It's got soft maple on this side, so-so side on that side, and you can see the laminated pieces together in there. Now, you wouldn't normally just leave, this exposed. If it was in your shop, you probably would, because it's just your shop. So if it's a finished piece of furniture, you probably want to have a nice, clean look like this board. This is a smaller example where it kind of, looks like the board is actually an inch or inch and a half thick, but it's really not. It's built up this way where you'll take and 45, the shelf itself, and then create some, I'll call them false fronts, I guess. Now you could, traditionally you could use a piece of the edge banding, which you can get in jumbo rolls like this. I use a lot of it, and I really like edge banding. But in this particular case, what I'm looking to do is to create a thicker look about the shelf. This example that I have here is not all that thick, but I'll probably do something similar on this shelf just to give it a little bit more depth. It actually suits another purpose too, which is on a longer shelf, over time, if you have things sitting on the edge, it could tend to start to get a sag in it or get a bit of a belly in it. So I tend to believe, I've never really proven it, but if you, by taking and gluing up a hardwood piece along the front in this manner, that it adds a level of rigidity to the board as well. Structurally, if you take a board and you run it vertically along another board, it does add a layer of rigidity. Now, we're not talking about parking a car on these things. We're just talking about a kid that's going to be putting books on it or Legos or something like that. But over time, if you look down a shelf, especially a longer one, you will see that it will kind of take on a little bit of a sag. And by gluing these up and giving that false front on here, it makes it look good. And it also, like I said, adds that layer of rigidity. So let me take you quickly through the process of building up these shelves. I've already got these cut. My next step is going to be to cut them down to 45 degrees, and then I'll cut the fronts. Then I'll do some assembly, and we'll cut back and see how things turned out after that. All right, so let's cut to it. Let's get this on. I'll be back in a minute. All right, so now we have the shelves cut. We've got those mitered, put a 45 on them. And we cut the false fronts. These I made 1.25 inches wide, and you can see those are cut to 45 degrees. And I've done this before, so I know that it's a true 45. I used my Wixie digital gauge to set it, so I'm fairly confident in it. You also saw when I was cutting these small pieces, it was a little sketchy. I know that. And, you know, I guess do what you're comfortable with. And I'll say it felt a little sketchy, but the one thing is I just got this Grr-Ripper, and I'm still kind of figuring out how to use it. But if you don't have one, I might recommend it. You know, they're not sponsored, but it did kind of help me, as you can kind of see when I was cutting these small pieces. I was able to keep my hand away from there as best as possible, and I could keep pressure on it, and I could keep pressure against the fence as well. So big fan of it. I'm still kind of learning how to adjust it and things like that. But that gave me a little more confidence in working so close to the blade, and especially at 45 degrees. Then my blade could stand to be sharpened as well. I didn't get as much burning on this too, which holding the pressure down I think helped quite a bit. So we got the front, we've got the shelf. Now here's the secret sauce, and I don't know if this is really secret sauce. I think some people probably would use like traditional blue masking tape, but what I found, of some weird coincidence, I had some of this Tyvek house wrap tape laying around one day. If you've ever used that on your outside of your house with that weatherproof paper or whatever you call it, this tape is really sticky. So what I do is I will take this board and I will flip it over, okay, so that the 45 is facing down. And I'll take a piece of this, string it along there, and split the difference, right? Don't go all the way on the board. Cut that off there. Plus, we're also going to need a couple additional pieces. Maybe we'll do 3. And you can try it with the blue tape. I just know that this tape is really sticky. With blue tape, I think it can be hit or miss on the brand that you grab, whether it's, you know, got enough adhesive in it or not. So what I do, you can kind of see that's kind of flapping around there a little bit. Now, what we'll do is we'll take this and we'll line up these knife edges to each other. Now, before you tell me, I know that this board is longer than this board. I do it that way on purpose. Probably it's a little bit excessively long, but I'm going to trim it up when I'm all done. That way I got good clean edges on both sides. So what I'll do is I'll just take it and slide it right down there and stick the front half to the tape as well. I'm going to make sure those edges are as aligned, because when you cut boards, and the boards will have bends in them, but try to force it to be as close to that as possible. And you can see, now you get yourself a little hinge there, right? Make sure that tape is stuck, all right? So, careful I don't stick this to there. Now what I'll do is take some Gorilla Glue. Actually, I don't know, I've used Type Bomb before. The thing I like about the Gorilla Glue is that this stuff sets up pretty fast. I don't know what the set time is, but man, I really am impressed with how well and how fast it sets up. I'm down at the end of the tube. I probably should have grabbed a new one. Probably have the tip a little bit clogged too. There we go. I use a liberal amount. Somebody I saw in a video once said you can't have enough glue. Well, I think you can. I don't know, you overdo it a little bit. And of course I just take my finger, kind of run it in there, get it all spread out. I suppose you could probably use a tool of some sort. I really would like to get some better gluing utensils. So if there's an anxious sponsor out there that does gluing stuff, call me. I'd love to see it. So, and I try to get as much excess out of there as I can. All right. All right. So, this is more for my finger than it is for anything else. Set that there. Just in case the Gorilla people see this, they can send me a case of glue too. So now what we'll do is I'll take this, squeeze it up this way, hold it tight. Then I'll grab these clamps. You heard how sticky that was? I'll stick it on there. I'll pull it as tight as I can, and I'll see glue kind of ooze out the back. Kind of see that that's sticking, man. It's not going anywhere. Because you know it's kind of hard to get a clamp on, you know, when you're gluing a 45, they want to slide away from each other. Sometimes in the past I've used just nailed it and then filled the nails. But these I'm just going to poly coat, so I really kind of want them as clean as I can get them in the front. But I think 3 probably is going to hold this good. Then what we'll do, we want to clean up the, should have been a little bit more prepared. You want to clean up the back side of this. Now, for the most part, this underside you're not going to see. But, I don't know, I just kind of, a little bit more pride in my work, but I like to clean it up as best as I can so I don't get the glue all over where the poly is supposed to go. I think most people operate that way. So get that cleaned up. Plus, you can sand it easily. You know, it's easy to get in that corner if you happen to miss a big piece. In fact, I'm going to have some underneath where that tape is. So, it's kind of that. Yeah, I got the wood all wet. We'll have to do some resanding anyway. Kind of see that. So, see, that's all wet. Kind of see from this side a little bit. You can see I have a little bit of glue underneath there. Yeah, you can see it's long, but hopefully as we look down this, if I were to clean that glue out, you'd see a pretty tight joint all the way along there on both sides. And again, when we're all done, we're going to clean that up. We're going to cut this off to be the exact length, because no matter if I made these boards exactly the right width, getting them exactly lined up, I always like to have as sharp of an edge on there as I possibly can. So you can see it's all water doused. So that's really it when it comes to, you know, clamping these things up. Little secret with the Tyvek tape. Keep in mind though, it's like $15 a roll. I think I just bought a fresh roll here that was like 15 bucks, but it's lasted me for quite a while. So you know, something I'd try. You know, take a look at it, or if you find some decent blue tape. I don't know that packing tape works as well, because I think that doesn't stick real well. You'll know when you pull this off, it's still pretty snug. You can see it's still pretty tight on there. So let's cut to the next day when these are all dried up, and I'll show you what the final product looks like. All right, we've given these shelves some time to dry. I was looking at the Gorilla Glue. It says short clamp time, which I think I mentioned earlier, but it says you just need to clamp for 20 to 30 minutes, so that's a pretty short time. I like it. Sometimes it's too quick though. Anyway, let's peel one of these off and see what we ended up with. Yeah, I know, right? I put too much on there. You hear how sticky that is. Actually, it does leave a little bit of residual sometimes. It's not real bad. I knew I was gonna have to sand these anyway, so it isn't as big of a concern for me. But I just wanted you to see what it was like peeling it off. And it's like any other tape, I guess, where it kind of is a little bit of a, it does tear apart in some spots. And that stuff's sticky. Maybe somebody out there has used some other tape that's just as sticky that isn't just as expensive. But it does the job and keeps you from having to use mechanical clamps. Yeah, not bad. A little bit of a gap there, nothing serious. When you sand that, and I could fill that with a little bit of wood and it'll take up some of that. All right, so we'll fast forward. I'll peel all these off, trim a few up, sand it down, and we'll be good to go. Get some polyurethane mixed up so we could spray all these shelves. Usually what we do, I use a Erlex high volume, low pressure sprayer. That's HVLP. I've had that for well over a year now, and I use it for spraying everything from polyurethanes to stains, a lot of paint I spray, and if you don't have one, I would highly recommend it. But today we're going to just mix up just a little bit of poly. I have some left over from another project, but even though it's going through a HVLP sprayer, you still have to thin it out to some extent. You can't just put it in there in its standard concentration. So I'm just going to mix a little up. I know by experience kind of the consistency that I'm looking for. Otherwise, they do provide gravity meter, and they have some numbers that they tell you where you dump the product in, or you kind of scoop it in, and as it falls out, it has to evacuate this complete cylinder within a certain number of seconds, and then you know your viscosity is right. So, but I don't use that much anymore. I kind of go by just general consistency. Poly isn't too bad where you have to thin it out a lot. Some paints that are really thick, you gotta thin out quite a bit. But I found that this is a Minwax water-based. I try to work with water-based products wherever I can, because some of the oil-based products are a real pain to clean up, and so I usually try to get this in a water base whenever I can. But actually, I don't know if I'll need that anymore. I had a little bit of a container left over here. I think, and actually it may even be the right consistency. So I don't think I'm gonna have to thin this out at all. And I think this is gonna be enough. You should always strain your finishes before you put them in your gun. Make sure you don't have any boogers or anything in there that are gonna clog up the gun while you're spraying or create some weird splatters. It goes pretty far, but I usually put on my my shelves, I generally put at least 2 coats sometimes 3 coats. The first coat usually sucks in and you don't get the perfect finish on them right away. But for the most part, I typically will use 2 to 3 coats. But that looks good. Let's go ahead and head into the paint booth and get these things sprayed. Well, there you have it. Professional looking shelving with a nice waterfall front, so it looks like big, thick, solid wood, all without using any clamps. You can see by the edge here, it actually was a pretty tight edge. There's a couple spots that I probably could have done a little bit better. But on this shelf, I saw a couple little blemishes there, but I'm not overly concerned about that. For the most part, they all turned out really good. This Tyvek tape, I'm telling you, I know it isn't what it was intended for, but I use it all the time for holding stuff together as I'm letting glue set up. So yeah, give it a shot. And like I said, it's a little pricey. Maybe you got some ideas on some other tapes that have pretty good adhesive on it. Please share them in the comments down below. If you give it a shot and you like it, please leave a comment as well. If you didn't like it, don't leave a comment. Thanks again for tuning in. I do appreciate it. If you found that it had some educational value, maybe some entertainment value, please give it a like. Maybe share it with a friend, share it with your dog, share it with your cat, maybe share it with grandma. Grandma would like it a lot, I think. Most importantly, if you haven't subscribed already, I would greatly appreciate it if you would click on the subscribe button, and it would greatly help out this channel a lot. Like I always say, let's get back to making. Let's get back to using our hands and our brains, all right? So until next time, we'll see you later.